If it's too hot or cold, tell me. I'll try to push the button.
All right, so I guess I'll go ahead and get started, and hopefully I won't need this thing, but we'll see. So my name is Charles Johnson. I live and work in Las Vegas, Nevada. I write a blog at RadGeek.com, and I'm a member of the Alliance of the Libertarian Left, ALL, which is an organization trying to advance many of the rhetorical and organizational goals that I'll be talking about over the course of this talk. And the reason that I'm here today is because I want to deliver you two messages. So let me just cut to the chase and deliver both of them right now. They're both the point of this entire talk, and they're both actually quite simple. I can put them in 10 words or fewer. Here's the first, that New Hampshire will be free soil within our own lifetimes. Here's the second, that we are all going to make it happen. And when I say we all, I don't just mean the people in this room. I don't just mean the people in this organization either. I don't mean the people in my own organization, the ALL. I mean all of us, everybody. Projects like the Free State Project and ALL, yes, but and you and me, but also our friends and our neighbors and our fellow workers. I believe that in my lifetime, all of us here and elsewhere will rise up, and we will make ourselves free of the oppression and exploitation inflicted upon us by government laws, government regulation and regimentation, government cops, government bureaucrats, local government, county government, state government, federal government, and transnational governing bodies like the UN, WTO, and IMF. We will become free because we have individually and cooperatively made ourselves ungovernable. We will do this with or without the cooperation of the rest of the world, and whether or not the political powers that be have been persuaded of the truth and virtue of the freedom philosophy. If the souls of politicians and political parties and political institutions can be cured, then that will make it so much the easier. But even if they cannot, we can and will make it no longer worth their while, no longer even sustainable, for them to rule us against our will. We can and we will dump the bosses and bureaucrats off of our backs, politically, socially, economically, and we will stand upright in control of our own destinies. I'm saying these things today because I think they're important. I think they're important because they seem impossible, and yet they are true. It's easy to doubt that anywhere in the US can really be free, really totally free, in our own lifetimes. Government is big. Government is everywhere. Government consumes somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2 of every dollar that you make. Every dollar that you make and every dollar that you spend is itself part of the world's largest and most powerful government monopoly, the government centralized banking cartel and its fiat money monopoly. City government patrols every street. The federal government of the United States is the richest, most technologically advanced, and most militarily powerful organization in the history of the world. The two major parties which thoroughly dominate the electoral processes at every level show no real signs of wanting to roll back government in any major area of policy, or even to contain it at its current levels. We've all seen change come and go more than once now, and no matter whether a Democrat or a Republican candidate wins, the party in power is more or less guaranteed to aggressively push government further and further into our lives. It's easy to just get dizzy looking at the size and scope of government. It's easy to lose hope entirely in the face of such an enemy. And it's just as easy and just as destructive in the long run to lose hope by deferring it, by concluding that freedom is only for our children or our grandchildren or our great-grandchildren, that it takes a long and slow process of chipping away at the edges of invasive government in the hope that after the next few 4-year election cycles, or maybe a lot of 4-year election cycles, we might begin to get just a little freer, and we might be able to contain or even roll back government a little, leaving the rest of the tasks for future generations. I'm here today to say that's not good enough. I'm here today to say that freedom is much closer than any of us think, if we fight for it and if we know where to take that fight. And I'm here today to ask you all to get into that fight by having the hope to believe in, the courage to say, and the wisdom to act on a freedom idea that means nothing less than political revolution. A revolution that's not violent, but brings an end to the violence of the state and of all forms of government control. A revolution that's not about taking the government that we have and replacing it with another government that we want more or fear less, but rather that seeks to end all forms of government whatsoever everywhere. A revolution that's not carried out by means of ballots or by means of bullets, but rather a revolution that's made of people. And what do I mean by that? Well, let me take a few minutes to tell a story. This is a story about one of the great freedom struggles of the early part of the past century, early in the 20th century, which was carried out by the sort of people that you might least expect. This is a story of the free speech fights that took place all across the American West, and particularly the free speech fight that took place in Spokane, Washington in 1910. The people who carried this out were members primarily of a radical labor union, the Industrial Workers of the World. The IWW was a labor union that flourished from 1905 when it was founded up until about 1921, when the deliberate efforts of the federal government to destroy it, partly because of its economic program and partly also because of its opposition to World War I and its active efforts to promote draft resistance, made it considered enemy number one by progressive statists such as Woodrow Wilson and his ilk. The Industrial Workers of the World, unlike the labor unions of today, for reasons that I may have the chance to talk about either later in the talk or else in the Q&A afterwards, were radically different from any of the labor movements that you see around us today. And the reason was because they were based on a principle of direct action and a principle of free association among workers. And so in Spokane, what would happen was this. So in the early 20th century, there were large numbers of men and women traveling around the country looking for work all over the American West. Many of these people were immigrants. Lots of them could only speak a little bit of English, couldn't necessarily read or write at all. And they'd follow the work from season to season. You'd ride the rails and go up to work in the wheat harvest during the harvest season. You'd come down and work in the mine shafts or the big timber towns of the Pacific Northwest, and came into towns like Spokane looking for work, any kind of work that they could get. The way it would work is you'd come into town, and you'd usually come into town in the off season, and you'd sort of find a cheap place to stay, one of the flop hotels or just jungling up in a shanty town, and wait for the weather to break. And once the weather broke, you'd come down onto the street, onto a place like Trent Avenue, the main drag in town in Spokane, looking for people who could help you find a job. Where all along Trent Avenue there were these rows of little shops called labor sharks, and a labor shark sold jobs. So you'd pay, say, $4 to a shark, and that would entitle you to give you a ticket, which would entitle you to a new job far out of town, say putting down a new mine shaft up in the Coeur d'Alenes, or working in the wheat harvest in the season, or whatever was available. So you boom up to the job that you got the ticket for, sort of burning through all your money as you went. You get up to the job, and you work about a month, you get paid, and then you get fired. And why? Because the foreman on the job up there was splitting the labor fees back with the shark in town, right? So it was crooked as hell. They'd call it perpetual motion, where you had 3 workers in one job, right? So you have one worker going to the job, one worker on the job, and another worker coming back to buy another damn job. And so the workers in Spokane got together and they said, this is ridiculous, this is crooked as hell, we need an alternative to this. Did they go to the city council and say, please, Mr. Sir, will you do something about this? Did they go to the National Labor Relations Board and say, this is an unfair labor practice and I'm going to call in lawyers to sue you? No, there weren't any such mechanisms of control in the first place, and if there were, the Wobblies wouldn't want them, because they believed that workers have to rise up by bringing together the workers themselves. And so instead they formed up unions, and they started building these alternate institutions, union hiring halls, places that were run by the workers themselves, where jobs could be, you could share information and pool resources in order to find jobs, without the shark skimming off the top, where the workers themselves would be in control of the space. And the union hiring halls generally worked until they started getting resistance. And where resistance through consensual means wouldn't work, the bosses were perfectly happy to employ resistance through violence. So the hiring hall up in Missoula, Montana was burned down, and the hiring hall over in Spokane was torn down by the law, by the cops. And